especially with a glyph I have, where when I press Empower Rune Weapon, it also heals me for 30% of my health, and then I can Death Strike my way to health, which at the moment heals for about 25k. When your character's only got 300, if you've got a couple there, you've got 100k plus 30%. You're looking at about half your health very quickly regained. And then Anti-Magic Zone, which is spell damage by 20%. For 3 seconds, 2-minute cooldown, so that's exactly the same, and so is Lich Ball, which is probably a very good one for PvP as well. But I think it shares a cooldown with the trinkets you have about removing all movement impairing effects. So not particularly useful right now, seeing as they stick everybody in PvP gear when you join. I think it's Metatorque, something like that. They shove you in PvP and you just roll with it. Asphyxiate, exactly the same. It replaces Strangulate, stuns them for 5 seconds, good for PvP, particularly if you want to interrupt and then just zerg someone for a little bit. Chillbanes, again, exactly the same. Slows the movement of someone and immobilizes the people affected by your chain device for 3 seconds. Again, it's very good. It's close between those two for PvP at the minute, and Death's Advance, which again is just your get the hell out of there kind of spell. It's not actually particularly that good, although it could be good for encounters later, raid encounters when you've got to get out of AoE or whatever. Blood Tap is exactly the same, 12 charges, 5 heals you up. Runic Empowerment, 45% chance to activate a fully depleted room. I've got that because I like having at least something to do, seeing as Horn of Winter no longer gives you runic power. However, it does last for an hour now, which I find particularly useful, because you're not having to sit there spam it. However, I did like it in the rotation in MOP, but you know, Runic Corruption, I think that's what it was called before. If not, it's exactly the same. 45% chance to increase rune regeneration by 100% for 3 seconds, which is probably actually the one I should go for. If you're a Death Knight and you know, please tell me if I'm being a bit of an idiot. Conversion, exactly the same. 2% of your health for 1 second, lasts until your runic power is exhausted. 10 runic power per second. It's a good, quick little heal. Or of course you could use Death Siphon, which is a good heal again, but I think it's perhaps more of an unholy. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, I could be completely wrong, in which case I'm sorry. Or Death Pact. Heals the Death Knight 52% of your maximum health and absorbs incoming amount equal to 50% of the amount healed. So basically you get 75% of your health kind of sorted. With Frost you don't have to have a minion because you don't have it anymore. Frost do not have one at all, not even as a little spell. So they've just taken it, so it's an instant heal, which is a lot better than most classes. Most classes still only have, I think it's now 22%. Why 22? I don't know. Must have something to do with the scaling. Girlfriend's Grasp, exactly the same. Pulls enemies towards you within 20 yards. Remorseless Winter, again, exactly the same. Hits on 5 times and it will freeze them. Can be up to, I think it's all enemies within 8 yards. And Desiccated Ground, again exactly the same, just kind of roots people for a bit once they walk into it. The new spells, which are the ones you won't know yet unless of course you're in the beta yourself. The Necrotic Plague, I found this to be the best in PvP and PvE. It's a lot easier to manage. Basically it's a dot that will stack up to, in fact, why don't I show you what they are? It's a dot that will stack up to 15, starting from 1. It will stack up all the time by itself, so you could just leave it once you've activated it, but that would be a little bit silly because it goes up to 15 quicker if you apply it more. Wow, door boss, well done. um, so here we go. It will stack to 2, or hit it with a howling blast, and it will go through. It also applies to other enemies, and being applied to other enemies, it can make it stack up a little bit quicker. Once it gets to its 15, however, it cannot be renewed. It will fall off and you will have to build again. But if you've got a lot of enemies about, then it's going to be doing a good amount of damage. Ignore the 245,000 DPS there. They've scaled it so that hit for 500, that hit for 5k. So yeah, it's they do the scaling the other way as well and make it hit ridiculous. I was doing about 1.5 million damage on a level 60 test dummy, which is just a little bit silly. The next one is Defile. Now, Defile replaces Death and Decay and has a very cool graphic. I've turned my graphics down a little bit just to save a little bit of lag, even though my stream is looking very laggy. I'm hoping it won't have been too bad for you to watch. And again, it's a pretty cool one. That's what I started out with, but changed it to do some PvP. And the last one, you have to wait for it to be off cooldown, sorry, is Breath of Sindragosa. Now, this is pretty cool. So I need to build up my runic power.
I can't do that yet. I can't do that yet.
And Breath of Sindragosa basically looks like that, and sprays the damage over them and will go on to other targets and will basically last until you run out of runic power, like a lot of your spells as a Death Knight right now. I haven't particularly tested it that much, to be honest. I'm sure it's actually very, very good. They all look quite good, if you ask me. So it's up to you really, but I prefer the easier style of management of the Death Knight in having just one dot to care about and not having as a Death Knight in Mr. Pandaria and even in Cataclysm. I just found Death Knights, I've always preferred Frost to Unholy. I've just found that you've never particularly had to worry about your dots. Obviously you have if you want to maximize your DPS and stuff, but I've always kind of found you can do relatively competitive DPS for what is expected of the Death Knight, without particularly managing them very well. But this just seems a lot easier. I mean, the second it falls off, you just reapply it. If it misses a second, I mean, I tend to wait a second or two before reapplying anyway at the minute. Yeah, I just find it a lot easier. Of course, they've taken a lot of spells out and tried to make it all easier for you. And I think that will help. I think it will bring a lot of new players into the game, and hopefully those players that might get stuck on normal raiding or whatever, hopefully it will give them the chance to move into mythic, as it will be now, and normal of course will be known as heroic, and flexible will be known as normal. If you haven't read about that, I can obviously tell you more about it if you want in the future, or there's loads of forums or whatever, you can just have a look. But let me know, and I will always happily give people as much or as little information as they want. Like I say, all the tips that I will give will be for those players that aren't your 14 out of 14 heroic people after a week of release. Like I say, I got to 10 out of 14 heroic. I was pretty happy with that. My guild in live now has stopped doing that. And we're just sort of helping people gear up for Warlords of Draenor. It still doesn't have a release date. I don't expect it to be anytime soon because there are still quite a lot of bugs, a lot of server issues, and there's only 3 servers at the minute, which is perhaps a little bit embarrassing. But I don't know. No, it's not embarrassing. I don't know what I'm expecting. I think it's very good for what they've done. They released the beta quite early compared to when they said the actual game would be released in the first place. So I think you've got to respect Blizzard for that. The raid test the other night, yes, the first one was a bit of a flop. They shut down the servers for a little bit. The second one, there's still a lot of connection issues. But to have got a raid test in, well, for me it was a week after I joined the beta, but beta's not been out long. The alpha's been out for what, like a month and a bit now. I think it's fantastic that they got a raid test out so early. It was just the 2 bosses. It was very interesting. I had to watch a stream myself of the first one, like I said at the beginning of this video. And basically, it didn't seem too bad. There was a lot of raid AoE damage, so healers beware of that. You will want to take 5 healers when you try this. I saw people go with 3 and 4, and there just wasn't enough healing. There was a lot of mana issues, and I also found that in the raid I was in later against Gruul. But the first one that they did was in Heimel, and it was the Butcher. The Butcher looks like this. He is just a fat ogre. Not particularly different from... Yeah, he looks quite cool. Not particularly different from the ogres you'll find anywhere in WoW at the minute, particularly other than a very fancy belt. So, good for you, the Butcher. You can't see loot or anything at the minute. But yeah, basically DPS have to avoid his cleave ability, so that's only really if you're a melee, but obviously it was raid wide damage, but there might be something. Yeah, I think that's just a melee thing. Healers, there was a lot. Gushing wounds, I guess that's a debuff that you'll probably have to dispel or just heal through. I haven't, like I said, I didn't actually get in that one. And then obviously there's a bit for tanks, but I've never done much tanking in World of Warcraft, to be honest. Heimel's the one we're on. And the next one that we looked at, oh, that's not good. I can't show you what he looked like. Basically it was Grohl, and it is the same Grohl from... Was it Vanilla? I don't know. I didn't play Vanilla. No, I think it was Burning Crusade. Didn't play that either. I joined in Wrath of Lich King myself. Yeah, Grohl looked exactly the same. But it was a very cool fight. Actually, again, there was a lot of AoE damage. It seemed a lot of heavy tank damage as well. So you will want bubbles on your tanks. But it was actually quite strange because obviously they've devalued the power of the absorb disc priests are nothing compared to what they are in this Pandaria right now. So you'll want 2 or 3 heavy tank duties, and